Do you want to understand what the law of assumption is? A lot of people in the manifestation world talk about the law of assumption. Well, my name's Kalia, and I'm going to do a deep dive into exactly what the law of assumption is and how you can use it to create the reality that you would love to live in. Now, the law of assumption was made popular by Neville Goddard. He's a New Thought teacher, speaker, and mystic who lived between 1905 and 1972. And his teachings really have made a comeback in today's manifestation marketplace, so to speak. A lot of people talk about the law of assumption. They talk about the wish fulfilled. They talk about living in the end. And this is all Neville Goddard's teachings. So what living in the end and living in the wish fulfilled really means is I'm going to use the example of having $100,000 in your bank account. Say this is what you really would love to have right now. You'd like to manifest $100,000 in your bank account, but you only have $100 in your current physical bank account. Well, the law of assumption invites us to assume that we have $100,000 in our bank account and then live in the end, meaning assume the feeling that you already have $100,000 in your bank account. Now, this can be tricky for most people because if you only have $100 in your bank account and you have rent due that is a lot more than that, and you have bills due, there is likely going to be that feeling of panic that most people have, that deep worry of how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to make this work? And so instead of living in the end, living in the wish fulfilled, the tendency is live in fear, live in panic. And it's actually that fear and panic that creates more fear and panic. So we actually have to trick our brain, or let's say our imagination, into believing that we have that $100,000 in the bank account. So if you have $100,000 in the bank account now, would that ease your worries? Would you be able to pay your rent? Would you be able to pay your bills? So you're going to go from that place of fear and panic. Oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. Even if you have enough money to pay your bills, but you're really worried about, well, what about next month? Or what about the near future? If you're living in fear and panic, then you're going to get more fear and panic. But if you live in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, which is I'm going to assume that I have $100,000 in my bank account, and I'm going to assume that feeling. So how would I feel if I actually had 100,000, add a few zeros, right? If I actually had 100,000 instead of 100, how would I feel? And you start to go into that feeling. That's assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You go into that feeling, you nurture that feeling, you live in that feeling more and more and more. You invite that feeling to be part of your reality throughout the day. And even at night, as you're going to sleep, you assume that feeling. You see that $100,000 in your bank account. You imagine how you would feel if you had that $100,000 in your bank account. The law of assumption does require that we retrain the brain. because it's our default to go into fear and worry. That's what most people do, right? So it's a real trick to be able to convince your mind that there's $100,000, your imagination, that there's $100,000 in your bank account when there's only really 100 there. You have to ignore reality, and that's what Neville Goddard invites us to do, is to ignore current reality, ignore what we see to be current circumstances. And that doesn't mean that we ignore our bills or ignore that we have rent due, but we don't spend our time in worry and fear about it. We don't spend our time focused on that we only have $100. We just do the best with what we have at this time, but live in the end, live in the assumption of the wish fulfilled. So it's a little tricky to do this. It's a practice, like any practice that you need to do. If you're going to build physical muscles, you've got to practice by lifting weights. You know, that's a practice. That's something that you get into. If you want to meditate, that's a practice. There's a lot of things that we do to become better at something. So the law of assumption is something that you practice, that you get better at. You get better at holding your concentration by doing it over and over and over again. I know in my own life, I've noticed that as I live in the end and live in the wish fulfilled, that I start to actually believe it, to really believe it. I know there was a time I woke up, it was really recently, that I do this practice in the morning where I do journaling, and I was journaling and created such a feeling in myself of gratitude for all the things that I had. And a lot of those things I wrote down that I was grateful for haven't even manifested in my physical reality yet, but there's so much a part of my reality that I'm already expressing gratitude for them, and I already have that feeling like they're already here. So this practice really works because it's the feeling of that wish fulfilled that creates the manifestation of it. And that's why Neville Goddard, he wrote a book called Feeling is the Secret. That's really what he means, is that it's more important to access the feeling of having what it is that you desire than even your ability to imagine it. An example of this would be if you are looking for a significant other, a husband or a wife, or someone that's really significant in your life. Neville Goddard talks about imagining a wedding ring on your finger as you go to sleep at night. Just what does it feel like? You might even imagine just kind of spinning that ring on the finger and feeling it there and feeling how good it feels to have that special someone in your life. So you're not visualizing that person. You're not saying, oh, he's got brown eyes and he's 6'6" and he's, you don't necessarily visualize the physical representation of this person from the future because you don't know yet what that person's going to look like physically. It's more that you're accessing, how will I feel being with him or her? And so you're accessing the feeling. And if you have a wedding ring on your finger and you're kind of touching that wedding ring and you're feeling that wedding ring on your finger and you're feeling what it feels like to have that special person in your life, and maybe even imagine a conversation happening between you and a family member or a friend saying how blessed you are to have this special person in your life and how wonderful this person is and how good they treat you. And so you're getting more into the feeling of it. And that's what we invite you to do with anything that you would desire to manifest. And it can be tricky. So I've worked with people that have had horrible illnesses where they were in a lot of pain. And it can be very difficult when you're in a lot of pain to imagine the feeling of not being in pain. And so in situations like that, I might have a client imagine that they are doing something that they see themselves doing, like running or hiking, or and just visualize themselves doing that, something that would indicate that they don't have pain anymore. Because if we focus on not being in pain, we're still staying in pain. We're still focused on the pain. So we don't want to do that. We want to focus on what would your reality be if you didn't have pain? You know, would you be out dancing or hiking or running or walking? What would you be doing every day if you lived a life without pain? So the idea that Neville Goddard teaches, or the concept that Neville Goddard teaches, is really living in the end, that wish fulfilled, as if you already have that reality. Now, another thing that Neville Goddard teaches that is a bit controversial, I think, is that he says that God is your own wonderful human imagination. And we all have our own ideas of what God is. And to see God as our imagination is a real stretch for a lot of people that believe in God, because we have our own concept of what God is. And I have my own concept of what God is that differs from Neville Goddard's concept, because I'm a deeply spiritual person. And I see the God as the life force within me. That is the force within me that is going to leave my body when this body takes its last breath. That I don't end. The life force within me doesn't end. It just goes somewhere else. And so I believe that the life force is God, that the life force within all beings is God, and we all embody a piece of that or a part of that. So that's my belief, but it doesn't change the concept that reality begins in our imagination, because God did give us this powerful imagination to create our life here on planet Earth. And as a clinical hypnotherapist who studied a lot about the subconscious mind, we learned that one of the functions of the subconscious mind is the imagination. So it is the seat of the imagination. The subconscious mind has a lot of functions, though. It's not just the imagination. It also controls our involuntary body functions. It is the dynamo that directs our energy. It is the memory bank that holds the memories of everything we've seen, heard, or experienced in our lifetime. So the subconscious mind has a lot of properties. And one important property is the imagination, because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is real in our current physical reality, what we perceive to be true now, and what we imagine. And this is really what Neville Goddard was tapping into, is that the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what is real, what we perceive to be real now in our physical reality, $100 in the bank account, and what is imagined, $100,000 in the bank account. And being that the subconscious mind is the dynamo that directs our energy, when we have that vision, when we imagine that there's 100,000 in the bank, or that we have that ring on our finger, the subconscious does not know that not to be true. So it rearranges the events in our life. It rearranges our energy. It uses our energy to bring that thing that we already have to us. And that's why we are imagining that we already have it. We're imagining that we have it. Now, then it must come to us in a sense. Our subconscious mind directs our energy to bring that thing to us so that it becomes real in the physical. And it can be a little bit hard to understand all of this, but it is a practice worth embarking on, because at any given moment, you're either going to create your reality consciously through intention, through imagining what it is that you desire and living in the end, and using these techniques to manifest your reality consciously, or you're going to manifest your reality by default, unconsciously, where your mind just wanders all over the place and you just get what you get. So that's why I love teaching this, because it's really an extension of my work as a hypnotherapist to talk about the power of the subconscious mind and how our imagination really is key. And this is where I'm really tapped into Neville Goddard. Is we both agree that imagination is key to creating our reality. We just need to understand how to use it. And so these are the things that I talk about on this channel so that you can get more clear about how to use your own subconscious mind and how to use your own beautiful human imagination to create your reality, to create the life that you love. And this is entirely possible. You just have to work at it and build that muscle. And those things that you desire will begin showing up in your life and proving to you that this stuff really works, because it really does. So I want to thank you for listening today. And because you did listen, I have a special gift for you. And that is, I've created a 6-figure income hypnosis download that you can download today for free and start listening to it. This hypnosis download is geared to reprogramming your subconscious mind to convince you in your imagination that you are currently bringing in a 6-figure income. You can go into this hypnosis download with the idea that you create 6 figures a year, or 6 figures a month, or 6 figures a quarter, whatever you want to do. It doesn't say it has to be annual. So you can use this to start getting your mind focused on creating 6 figures. And by listening to this audio every day for 30 days, you are forming a new habit. You are creating a picture to your subconscious mind in your imagination day in and day out. And that picture gets lodged in your subconscious mind. It becomes a new imprint that's being made on the subconscious. And then, of course, your subconscious is going to use that dynamo of your energy to guide you to the right places, the right circumstances, so that that becomes a physical reality. So I invite you to go ahead and go to the description below and download that 6-figure income hypnosis download right now and start listening. And I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.